Welcome back to RFD today on a Tuesday, the 11th day of June 2019. What a planting season it has been. It's time for a Pioneer Field Watch report. Field agronomist Doug Tepper joins us from Marshall County, his home. He covers north central Illinois. Doug, how do things look today?
You know, after the slow start to the year, I'm actually the most optimistic I've been for this planting season. A lot of crops went in the ground over the last 10 days or so, and it's amazing how fast that stuff jumped out of the ground with a little heat. And stands in this June planted window are very uniform, and it looks like everything made it up and looks good.
So what are your days made up of? Kind of doing some scouting, or where are you with that?
So this has been an interesting year. There was a small planting window back in April. A lot of that corn now is reaching, post-herbicide size. A lot of E5, E6 corn in places. Seeing a decent amount of pest pressure on that planting window. Saw a little cutworm out there, things like that. Also, it's a very sensitive crop since it's finally getting a good dose of heat and really starting to have a pretty rapid growth for the first time in its life. Tissue's pretty sensitive. Hail, sandblasting, things like that are causing a little defoliation, but it's starting to kind of turn the corner and look good. The middle of May planted window for my area, really starting to dive into those stands. A little more struggle there for establishing. Stand counts are a little lower for both corn and soybeans from that middle of May planted window. Some replant from that time frame is going on as well, and that's kind of consuming most of my time.
We'll talk a little bit later in the week here about soybeans and some other issues, but let's talk about nitrogen management while we're talking about that corn.
Yeah, so that's now that we've been able to get in the fields and get a crop planted, my focus is going to turn to the nitrogen management side of things. With all the wet weather we had this spring, we did lose some nitrogen. So it's kind of a balancing act between what we lost and also what our yield target for this crop is to really see what we need to, have out there to attain our top end yield for the year. In many cases, we've seen losses out there in fields that are pretty close to where growers are kind of going to with their yield estimates for this late planted crop. But in other cases, we had saturated fields for 4 or 5 days, and I don't know if you can count on much of your nitrogen being left there. So rescue treatments will definitely be a thing here very shortly, as this corn is going to come out of the ground and very rapidly go. So any side dress applications are going to be pretty tight here as this corn is going to grow fast, and we're going to need to be evaluating that here very shortly.
Pioneer Field agronomist Doug Tepper here on RFD Today. And we'll transition right into our next segment here on the RFD Today program. I'm Rita Frazier. We're going to deal with a topic that has been very important, especially this planting season, with the late planting season around the state, the floods in western Illinois, and the ag economy. And it is really mental health out in the countryside, especially with our hardworking farmers. To address this issue and some of the help that is available out there, we have invited in Colleen Reynolds. She is with OSF. She is Public Relations Director. Colleen, hey, you are no stranger to the microphone, and we appreciate you being here. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're talking about a smartphone app and a website called Silver Cloud, and it's a very flexible tool to help people have access to mental health services when we know as a country we have a shortage of providers. And OSF recognized that, they saw that coming, and we're looking for options to provide access, virtual access, if you will. And this Silver Cloud tool seemed to be the best that we could find because it has evidence-based therapy, online, digitally available 24/7, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. And it is backed by behavioral health navigators who monitor and can, once you go on the app and you take an assessment, they could take a look, and if your numbers, if you will, exceed a certain threshold, then they'll connect with you for perhaps more direct services in your area. But for a lot of the users, the different modules that they have are good enough. I mean, it really is a helpful tool.
One of the things that's wonderful is that we have in studio with us an Illinois farmer who is from the Knox County area, and we are looking at Matt Godecki. And Matt, tell us about your farm and a little bit about who you are and what you're doing this spring.
Okay, so yeah, my family farms in Knox County, and a little bit in Fulton County. I work in the ag industry as well. We mostly corn, soybeans rotation. Have some cattle. We were fortunate enough to get most of our crops in this week, so that helped things a lot. But we still have a few things, a few fields left to plant that we're waiting on.
You're young. Tell us a little bit about your age and before you were able to get the planter in the field, what were you going through this year?
Yeah, so I'm in my 30s, and I've never seen anything quite like this, and so for me it was like, all right, I need to talk to some people who've been in the industry for a while and see how they've coped with things and have they ever seen this? Well, what I found out is you talk to my grandfather or my father, and they'd never seen anything quite like this. So it was a struggle from that standpoint. It's like, all right, where do we go from here? Nobody's been here before. How do we handle it? It came down to where you just kind of waited on the weather, and that's all we could really do. And there's a lot of mental health aspects. You wonder about, all right, if we can't get the crop in, what happens? What financial impacts does it have on us? What there's a lot of mental things that go into that as far as stressful levels and things like that.
And even before the rain started, even last fall, the ag economy has been such the last couple of years that has been a stressful situation in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, if you look at when you're getting ready to plant a crop the last few years, you look at your balance sheet and it really doesn't really pencil out the greatest. And we've been fortunate enough. We've had good crops, not the best prices, so it's all kind of fell together. But that's really not anything new to the farming world. We came out of some really good times, but you go back into the 90s and early 2000s, we're kind of back to more of a normal level. And I think a lot of people in the farming industry can deal with that because they've been there before. This year, though, with the uncertainty of just not even knowing if you're going to get an opportunity to plant a crop is kind of what I think is kind of putting some people over the edge.
The other factor about, farmers, my dad, I live with him, kind of know that they're proud people, and sometimes asking for help is tough.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, my wife would probably say that I'm not the most open about, how I'm feeling or what's going on, but that's just what they're bred to do. They see a lot of things that normal people don't see, especially in the livestock portion. They've seen a lot of things that aren't good, and they've learned to just hold it in, and they're not going to go ask for help more than likely.
And are you okay with asking for help?
I would say that maybe I'm above average of most, just because of the things I've grown up and dealt with and went through. And maybe it's a little bit of a generation piece too. My generation, younger generation, is kind of we're probably not as tough, I guess. So maybe that's why I'm a little more open than some. But I think that's the best way to answer that.
And we've learned so much because of social media. I mean, I guess that's it's been good, bad, in both sense. But we also know that it goes from being a problem to the end of some people's life. We've seen what could happen if folks do not seek help.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know firsthand. I've friends, family friends. I've seen it happen, and it's situations where you never thought in a million years that would happen, and it did. So it's sometimes on the outside looking in, there's not warning signs, and that's what's frustrating. Like you said, they hold it in, they don't go ask for help, and nobody ever really knows. Nobody sees it coming.
We have a minute or so left in this first segment. We'll talk also with Luke Raymond, who is on the phone line from OSF. But you have a family connection at OSF.
Yes, my wife works for OSF.
And that is a good link. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I maybe see some things that others don't of what's going on in the healthcare industry, and it's a benefit, and that's kind of how I came about on this app and learned a little bit about it. Tori told me about it, and it's quite interesting.
Well, we'll get into it. It's free. That's the other key, and like Colleen mentioned at the open, it's something that you can do privately.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, yeah, I've played around with it some here, and whether it be waiting on a truck to bring me chemicals in the sprayer, just sitting there, flip through it, or sitting at home, watching the news or something, just kind of flipping through it, and you can kind of do it at your leisure. They actually recommend, as you go through it, to not just sit down and hammer it out and do it as fast as you can. They want you to take your time and do it at your own pace and, create more of a stress-free environment.
Such a valuable topic, and we will be back after a couple of minutes here to talk about Silver Cloud, this new app that's free and available to address the needs out in the countryside for farmers. This is RFD Today.
RFD Radio Network's DeLoss Yankee connects rural routes for you. DeLoss delivers essential farm and food-related news to our listeners. His witty voice has been heard on the air for more than 2 decades. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
Growing up on a farm prepared me for my career. I try to know a little about a lot of things and let the people I interview be the experts. I've always wanted to be on the radio. I'm just happy to do what I enjoy.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
I used to say I was an Illinois Farm Bureau member because it gives us farmers a voice in Washington. Then there was a bad regulation proposed in my community. That's when I learned what my county Farm Bureau does for me right here in my own backyard. From giving scholarships to local kids to tackling township or zoning concerns, Farm Bureau starts right here. And now, that's why I say I'm a member.
Call your county Farm Bureau and rediscover your grassroots power.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise, we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
Look up, look down, look around. Look up, look down, look around. In the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
If you're hearing this, you should be concerned about the Asian longhorn beetle, an invasive species that's destroying our trees. But you can help. Look for the signs and help stop the beetle.
Look up, look down, look around. Look up, look down, look around. In the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Some signs of the ALB are dime-sized holes on tree trunks, a sawdust-like material called frass, and the beetle itself, with a long black body and white spots.
Look up, look down, look around. Look up, look down, look around. In the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Learn all the signs and how to report them at AsianLonghornedBeetle.com. That's AsianLonghornedBeetle.com.
We're back here on RFD Today on a Tuesday. We're talking about mental health as it pertains to the condition, really, of the farming community, given not only the current late planting season this spring, but the economy as well. We're going to head down the phone lines to OSF. The healthcare manager for behavior health is Luke Raymond. Hi, Luke.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We're fine. We're talking about an important issue, and we've talked about the Silver Cloud app that is available. Colleen is here with us, and she explained that you guys really looked a while to find just the right, really helpmate for this issue.
Yeah, we did. The key thing about Silver Cloud is that it comes with a number of evidence-based research tools, research experiences that validate the tool for its use across a wide range of populations. So we feel like it's a very valuable tool to provide to the communities that we serve, given that it's got that strong evidence base for effectiveness in managing a number of behavioral health conditions.
In your mind, with what you've dealt with to date here, we talked about the current ag economy, the situation out in the farming country. What are you finding?
Well, I spent about 10 years of my career working in a rural health clinic where a large component of the population that we served was part of the agricultural community. In fact, I grew up in a very small community. Out one window was a cornfield, out the other window was a pasture. So there's a number of factors in an agricultural or rural community that sort of contribute to a higher level of need for behavioral health. We heard in the previous segment, Matt talked about some of the stigma sort of associated with seeking out help. Historically, it's been really tough for those folks to seek out the services because of a feeling of potential weakness or lack of ability to handle these problems on their own. Another factor is the scarcity of resources. Simply based upon the rurality of the region, the availability of effective behavioral health care may not be as prevalent as it is in our larger communities. And then the third factor is also highly associated with that. There's a higher level of isolation and lack of connectivity in some of those communities, which can make those conditions a little bit more difficult to manage.
Now like you mentioned, Matt, talking about the app, and he's had a chance to look at it and work with it on his phone. So hopefully you guys will interact here. Matt, how did you find working with the app? Was it easy to download and sort of easy as far as the following the instructions?
Yeah, I mean, so it's really easy to just download it off the App Store or whatever, and once you did that, you just sign in, and it pretty much is self-explanatory. It's step by step. Here's where we want to start. They want to kind of get a little background on what you're dealing with and how you handle different situations. There's a series of questions, and as you go forward, it just it kind of dives into the type of personality you are and how you deal with those situations. And
then, Luke, when a farmer such as Matt begins working or relating to the app, how is it designed to work, and then follow the process along the way?
Sure. There's a number of different modules within the app itself. It includes the skills and tools typically utilized or associated with traditional counseling or therapy that something like myself as a counselor would use with an individual in a counseling session. Things such as stress management, journaling, thought, emotion, behavior matching kind of skills. And additionally, something that's really important that Silver Cloud offers is the connection to an integrated supporter. So we don't just give these skills and services to people without any connection to a live person. So for every person who signs up for the depression and anxiety modules, there is a live OSF supporter, a behavioral health navigator working in the background, and they provide the user with check-ins and intervention if there is a need that arises. So, for example, if a red flag emerges on a depression screening, our supporter will reach out to that user who's using Silver Cloud and provide them with both support and connection to live resources if necessary.
And I knew our time was going to come and go so fast, but about a minute for each of you to sort of summarize. We'll go with you, Matt. What's your takeaway from this, and what's your message to fellow farmers listening?
My takeaway is it's a great tool. I think there's a lot of opportunities on it, And I guess my message would be is, most individuals in the ag world have a smartphone, and they probably have some time. Even if you're not really dealing with anything you don't think, I would encourage them to download the app and look into it and just see where it takes them.
And Luke?
What I would say is that, the most important takeaways are that anyone who lives in an OSF area of service across Illinois can access this tool at no cost. There's no need for a referral from their doctor, and there's no need for them to be an OSF existing patient. This tool allows folks to access these behavioral health services through our virtual front door. It reduces those barriers so that they can access those things without having to make a call or go to an office.
And they can find Silver Cloud easily in their app store.
They can. Yeah, the best way to sign up is we've made a really simple URL. It's osfhealthcare.org/silvercloud, and they can sign up from there and download the app and get going.
Thank you guys so much for being with us and being so forthcoming with this information. And we certainly hope that this is of value to many people out in the listening area. We will be back with more RFD today. More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
RFD Radio Network's Jim Taylor connects rural routes for you. You can trust Jim every morning for your overnight markets. He gets up early to help keep farmers on top of their game. Here's a bit about his rural routes.
I have the opportunity to cover something different every day and provide listeners with up-to-date markets, news they need to do their job and be successful, from legislative issues to crop updates and weather, of course.
Be it routes or routes, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
The Illinois economy runs on our homegrown agricultural products. Our dairy, beef, pork, corn, and soybeans grow the agricultural industry by nearly $20 billion each year. But we don't just grow Illinois, we grow North America. Canada and Mexico account for over $45 billion in U.S. agricultural exports, and they support more than 1 million American jobs. Exports to Canada and Mexico matter to everyone in the agriculture and food industries.
A message from Illinois farmers and their checkoff programs.
Attention, Illinois farmers. You won't want to miss this field day at SIU Carbondale University Farms. It's your chance to hear from industry experts about ongoing research and how it will benefit your farm. Join us on June 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. with free lunch included. This is a joint effort of the SIU College of Agricultural Sciences, Illinois Nutrient Research and Education Council, and Illinois Farm Bureau. You must pre-register at IllinoisNREC.org and click on upcoming events.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. Or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program, with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/farmbureau.
We're back here on RFD today on a Tuesday. It is June Dairy Month, and we have had lots of conversations about the current dairy industry and about the good things going on in promotion. We'll talk more about those topics with the CEO of Midwest Dairy, Lucas Lynch. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, how are you today?
Doing well. It's National Dairy Month, and we've got programs rolling out all across the country. It's an exciting time to celebrate dairy.
Yes, it is. Talk a little bit about, back to the old purpose behind June Dairy Month. This was a very important time of year for dairy promotion for the dairy industry.
Sure. Well, you've heard it as June Dairy Month for many years, and as in the last recent years, we've really continued to evolve or elevate the National Dairy Month itself, the month of June. It's an important time for us to really showcase the ongoing efforts that are happening year-round in the dairy community. And this year in particular, we are very focused on the health and wellness of the food insecure, especially the 1 in 6 children that leave the school lunch program and are food insecure during the summer months.
Talk a little bit more about that, Lucas, and what you guys are doing.
Well, one of the great things that we have focused in on is the fact that giveagallon.com is a program where friends and neighbors and all of us involved in and across our country as consumers can donate funds to support the food insecure. And giveagallon.com is that place or that vehicle for donations to be received. But ultimately that converts into a Milk to My Plate program, which is a direct purchase model that food banks, ultimately working with food pantries, are able to utilize by getting a direct contract established with the milk processor. Because here's the reality, the most requested food in food banks is that of fresh milk. And Midwest Dairy and our counterparts across the country, we spend time with dairy farmer investment, putting the cold chain in place, making sure the refrigeration assets are available at that local food bank in order to accept deliverables of refrigerated products, specifically dairy products.
I like that terminology, cold chain, and you would think that this would be a part of the whole situation and the part of the food pantries forever, but it's just not. It hasn't been.
Well, if you think about it, just even in your own kitchen, what are the most expensive things that you've got in your own kitchen? And then it's probably your stove, your refrigerator, and maybe even a dishwasher if you're lucky. And all of that is part of what even a food pantry needs to look at. What are the most expensive assets? And refrigeration and coolers, for example, are kind of that nice to have if you can get them. And that's really the last link that allows us to get that fresh dairy product on the shelf for today's consumers.
So what should we know, Lucas, takeaway on this topic, how we can help?
Again, giveagallon.com for consumers. Think of that as your friends and neighbors as a chance to give more. And I would also point you to, if you're finding this story of interest, on Midwest Dairy's podcast for all things dairy called Dairy on the Air, we recently featured Julie Yurko, who is CEO of the Northern Illinois Food Bank. I would direct you to that to learn more about the need and understand how a food bank in Illinois, for example, like Northern Illinois Food Bank, is serving the community through the dairy goodness that has not only been requested but has been made available because of that supply chain being intact.
Let's move on then to a couple of other very successful campaigns and programs that you guys offer and work on through Midwest Dairy, and that's the Fuel Up to Play 60. That's really rolling.
It is rolling. It's a 10-year program, and if you just reflect on what was big news this last weekend in Illinois, the Chicago Bears just celebrated a 100th anniversary, and as a 10-year partner of Fuel Up to Play 60, and here's what it is. The NFL's program was Play 60, and the National Dairy Council's program was Fuel Up to Play, and with the partner of the United States Department of Agriculture, the three partners came together to create Fuel Up to Play 60, a premier health and wellness program in about 73,000 schools across the country over the last 10 years. Well, we saw this last weekend where that relationship evolved to dairy farmers being in unlikely places, especially at the 100th year celebration, where fans from all across the country flew in or drove in to be a part of the celebration in Rosemont. We stood there with dairy farmers interacting with literally thousands of fans who were enjoying cheese sticks and a dairy story and taking some fresh Instagram photos with players and dairy imagery. It was great, but it's just an evolution. And I think from a Fuel Up to Play 60 standpoint, if you're a dairy farmer, or heck, if you're anybody in agriculture, this is a win for you because it's about the health and wellness of our youth and that of a balanced diet and physical activity.
Yeah, just 30 seconds here in this first segment, but that connection between physical activity and the healthfulness of milk nutritionally, it's been wonderful.
It is absolutely wonderful. One of the best things about milk is even chocolate milk, that ability to refuel after a good hard workout. It's why college campuses across our country have milk on the shelf.
Love it. And we're going to talk more about the wonderful programs going on through the Midwest Dairy and, of course, focus in on those hardworking dairy farmers throughout the country during this very important time for the dairy industry. When we also come back, we'll talk more with Lucas and we'll prepare for weather forecast. We'll be checking in with Dan Hicks from Freeze Notice Weather and get an updated forecast on what's to come. We've certainly enjoyed this window of opportunity. And like we heard from Farmer Matt there from Knox County earlier in the program, there has been a lot of planting that has been able to get done, to take place here the last week or so here in Illinois. More to come. This is RFD Today.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Dina Stroish connects rural routes for you. From the Farm Bill to crop insurance to GMO labeling, her expertise is apparent in the stories she reports. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I get to meet interesting people and share their stories, and I get paid to do it. I cover ag policy and really enjoy keeping the farming community updated on these important issues.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Are you preparing for planting season? We don't mean to be a pest, but here's a few things you need to know before you grow. The Illinois Department of Agriculture now requires special local needs labels, including new restrictions for the use of herbicide dicamba on top of soybeans in Illinois for the 2019 growing season. Did you know these additional restrictions go beyond federally approved labels? Remember, the label is the law. To find out more about these Illinois-specific labels, visit ilfb.org/label-aware.
Checking your numbers this hour in the commodity markets, we are still trading lower on a Tuesday morning. Lower corn, beans, and wheat. Nearby July corn down 6.409 3/4. September down 5 3/4, 4.18 1/4. December corn down 5 3/4, 4.28 3/4. Out to March, we are trading down 5 3/4 at 4.37 3/4. In the beans, July down 8.50 1/2. August down 7 3/4. September down 7 3/4, and November down 7 3/4. We're at 8.78. July wheat, Chicago down 3, 5.04 1/2. September down 3 1/2, and December wheat down 4 1/4. We're at 5.20 1/4. Bean meal for July down 1.30 at 3.12.10. We're back here on RFD Today, talking June Dairy Month with Lucas Lynch, the CEO of Midwest Dairy. We talk about promotion and promoting wonderful products, but it goes back to that saluting of the dairy farmer. Lucas, you've been involved with the dairy industry for many, many years. What has this past year been like for you as a member, proud member of the dairy industry?
Well, the fact is, we know that there's been just incredibly difficult times on the farm. And the last 3 to 4 to 5 years, frankly, there's been a whole lot of more months at the end of the money for most farming operations. And so that financial stress that is on the farm is real, but I will say that through all of it, we've seen our farmers continue to look to the future in a very positive way. You know, the fact that during a National Dairy Month, we're talking about how dairy farm families are nourishing communities across the country. You know, our farmers, they don't just produce milk, they feed families. And I think it's really important to see how those farmers engage at every level throughout the system, whether that's at the local food pantry level or even at the national leadership level. Dairy promotion, dairy checkoff is farmer-led, farmer-funded, and farmer-managed.
It was back in November out at Trade Talk. Our intern Jenna Preston talked with you, and I remember very vividly listening to that interview that she recorded with you there because, you know, you focused in a lot on the joy that dairy foods bring. You know, we talked earlier about, you know, those who are hungry and those of us who aren't hungry take for granted, you know, when we can just at any time go downstairs and get an ice cream, a yogurt, or a fresh milk. Dairy foods do bring joy.
Yeah. You know, the Undeniably Dairy campaign has been really focused in on that locally produced food, that nutrient-dense, responsibly produced. We know that our farmers are focused on animal care and best practices on the farm, but ultimately it comes home in the real joy. Giving ourselves permission to lean in and think about all those great family memories that we've had growing up or even as adults. Oftentimes, if you think about it, dairy is someplace in the picture, and it's an exciting time for us to be thinking not only about the innovation that's in the industry, but how we really are giving ourselves permission to fall back in love with the food that we've cherished for many years.
I love that. Now, just last week, it's been a little over a week, we were in Bond County where there are 3 dairies all doing a little bit of a different thing with 120 dairy cows. You know, we had Marcoute's Creamery there. We had a more traditional dairy with the robotic milkers with the Johnsons. And then we have, you know, Turley's Dairy, and they're doing it all and, you know, bringing folks right there to their processing in the milk store. So there's so many ways, and you say innovation, there are so many great stories to tell.
Well, the resiliency of our dairy farmer families. Dairy farm families are fantastic, but the innovation and excitement that consumers are demanding of us. They want to experience their food, and that we talk a lot about giving consumers an excellent dairy experience. You know, we're in the world of promotion. We don't really touch a product, but we ultimately talk about it. We have the research and insights to think about where consumers are heading. And these dairy farm families that you just mentioned, they're looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, how do I innovate towards the future? And that resiliency reminds me an awful lot of the family dairy farm that I grew up on. You do what it takes, and you have a real joy and commitment along the way, and it attracts attention. And that's a real positive for the dairy community.
June Dairy Month is what we're talking about. We talked about innovation, and we mentioned a few of the programs that are going on this month, maybe a few other things that are going on that folks can help celebrate the month.
Well, dairygood.org is a great website to learn more about what's happening across the country. But the Real Love Convoy, again, speaking of joy, to celebrate National Dairy Month, we have a convoy that is traveling across the country recently on Good Morning America, you know, just helping facilitate the conversation and really getting back to the fact that our friends and neighbors within our communities that are undernourished, 1 in 6 kids that may not know where their next meal is coming from during their work week because they're not in school, you know, that's not acceptable in this day and age. And it's important for us to know where we're at in that system in order to provide solutions. That's exciting. I think the notion of giveagallon.com is a fantastic platform to engage all of us who may not have to worry about where our next grocery dollar comes from, where we can help those that are in need. I think if you're also talking about programs to be thinking about pints to gallons, if you're in a school system, it's a tremendous way for our youth to have gotten involved. They take these plastic pints and they basically take them home and it's like a piggy bank. They put their spare change in it. And in the state of Nebraska alone, 5 schools raised $11,000 to turn pints into gallons.
So many good stories. Now, I have to ask you, since you referenced it, your home dairy farm, where is that?
You know, I'm originally from South Dakota, so northeastern South Dakota. Our family produced milk that went into the local cheese plants and just gave me a tremendous platform to study dairy science, dairy manufacturing. I have to tell you, I'm an SDSU jackrabbit from South Dakota State, so I'm proud alum.
Now, with the recent news, undercover videos, et cetera, we won't go into it, but when it comes back to animal care, you and your background, you know how important the relationship between farmer and cow are on the dairy. I wish everyone could have that firsthand experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The animal care practices that are on our family dairy farms across this country are second to none. And in the world of those who want to see us out of business, we'll stop at nothing, frankly, to try to unseat our long-held position in being the best stewards of the land and of animals. And we know that a well-fed, well-cared-for animal will produce for us. And that's part of that great symbiotic relationship that we have with animals and the land. So it is important. It's also really important for us all to be together. Anything that happens in today's society or online, it just doesn't happen to a company or a brand. It happens to all of us. And it is so important for us to look to our left and our right across the industry and realize if it happens to dairy or if it happens to pork or if it happens to beef or poultry or fill in the blank, it's happening to all of us who are part of the food supply production system. And we as farm families need to take a step back and realize that we're in this together, and a shot at any one of us, no matter where we're at on the scale of opportunity, it is a shot at all of us. And we need to make sure that we're doing our part at our farms to be and continue to be the best stewards of animals and livestock and our farms themselves, but ultimately doing it in a way that is where consumers are at and helping them understand. It's not educating them and telling them the way it is. It's really sharing a conversation. And the only way that we can do that today is connecting on shared values with today's consumers and helping them understand the work that we do on the farm each and every day.
Midwest Dairy CEO Lucas Lynch. Lucas, thank you so much for your time, and we are celebrating here in Illinois June Dairy Month. Our thanks to Lucas Lynch with Midwest Dairy. When we come back, we'll focus on the weather, and Dan Hicks will be up next talking about not only the short term, but we'll look down the road a bit to midsummer for Illinois. This is RFD Today. Here's your livestock summary on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Rita Frazier. Soaring investor expectations for Beyond Meat bled into Monday, with the stock shooting up another 25% in morning trading. The meat alternative company thrilled shareholders last week, predicting it may break even this year, resulting in shares shooting up 39% last Friday, the first trading day after it reported quarterly results. That earnings report was better than the sell side expected. And according to Ken Goldman at J.P. Morgan, they're thinking the CEO there, Ethan Brown, likes to be conservative in his forecast. Something to watch for sure this week. As we look at the futures on a Tuesday, in the lean hogs, June down 35, 78.92. July down 6, 85.60. Live cattle, June up 42, 110.12. How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org. We're back here on RFD today, talking weather on Tuesday with Dan Hicks, ag meteorologist at Freeze Notice Weather. Dan, it's kind of been up and down here this spring, but with the window that we've had lately, this last week in Illinois, it has been beneficial for most of Illinois.
It has. I see that corn and bean planting jumped up nearly 30% over the state in the past week, and probably been a fair amount of planting done since those numbers were tabulated over the weekend. I think in many parts of the Midwest, this past week may have been one of the better ones we've seen so far, given how wet conditions were back in May. Another good dry day across Illinois today. Some rain does come into the state for tonight and tomorrow. Some dry time again later in the week, but it's kind of the same story. We don't see long dry periods of weather coming up, but at least we're getting a little bit of opportunity with these shorter dry windows that we've had, really since the 1st of June for the most part.
With the system moving in for tonight and tomorrow, how much do you think we might be getting?
I don't think it'll be a heavy rain. I think we'll see a lot of rainfall amounts in the 1/4 to 3/4 inch range tonight through Wednesday across the state. There may be a few heavier amounts, especially in the northern Midwest, but it doesn't look like a big rainmaker. Number one, it's coming into some fairly dry air. The cool, dry air that came down across the Midwest late this last weekend is not allowing any real Gulf moisture to get northward, so that should limit the rainfall somewhat, but still some significant amounts, but not heavy. Then another system affects the Midwest Friday and Saturday. Once again, not a heavy rainmaker, but certainly most of the region will pick up some rain during that time. I think here in Illinois, probably staying dry Friday, the best chances for those showers from that next system likely arriving over the weekend.
The factor yesterday was the wind, really a factor. We all noticed it, and especially probably those farmers or others who were wanting to spray kind of inhibited and prohibited some of those spraying plants.
Right. A pretty strong push of Canadian air coming in Sunday and Monday across the Midwest, and of course it dropped temperatures down quite a bit, and those winds were gusting over 30 miles per hour. Now today's a different story. We've got weak high pressure over Illinois today with lighter winds and dry conditions, so the winds won't be much of a factor out there into this afternoon, but with these weather systems moving across the Midwest, we'll probably have maybe 1 out of 3 days where wind conditions will not be very conducive for spraying. I think that on the back side of this next system, we could see another day with strong northwesterly winds, especially on Thursday here in Illinois as the next piece of Canadian high comes down. And then perhaps Friday would be another day where we'll have dry weather, but much lighter winds across the state as that high pressure moves right across Illinois during the day Friday.
I don't think that there's too many of us who, we're feeling a little bit more optimistic, more corn and soybeans in the ground, watching that emergence, but also now we're thinking, wow, what is July going to be like to Illinois? What are you seeing in the long term?
Well, we did look at some past years. We looked at some years that were unusually wet during the December through May time frame for the prime corn and soybean part of the country. The past 6 months ending in May was one of the wettest such periods ever. In looking back at some past years, and if you look at summer weather during those years, there tends to be a little bit of a trend for below normal rainfall from Illinois and Wisconsin westward into the western Midwest. The greater rainfall amounts during the heart of summer tend to be in the eastern part of the Midwest, but you have quite a bit of variety among those years also. So even though those tendencies are there, they're not 100% by any means. Temperature-wise, it's kind of all over the place. You've got some hot summers in there. 1983 is among those lists, but you've also got some cool summers. So temperatures tend to wash out to more normal when you average those years together. It's kind of just a look ahead at summer based on the wetness we've had recently here in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is probably longer than you feel comfortable in looking out. But we also think about harvest, especially for those to the north.
Well, I think that, not only has December through May been unusually wet, but this wetness across the country extends clear back into the late summer and fall of 2018. So, I think that Mother Nature does tend to balance things out over the long period. So, it would not surprise me if we do see a tendency for maybe normal to below normal rainfall in more of the Midwest during the second half of the year. And that's not a highly scientific opinion. It is based on the fact that things tend to move from one side of normal to the other over longer periods of time. So, I think that there's the potential where, the extremely wet conditions we've experienced here for the past 6 to 9 months may tend to swing the other direction a little bit. Now, I'm certainly not saying it's going to be severely dry, but the tendency may lean toward less precipitation overall for the second half of 2019.
Given our topics this entire hour, Dan, I feel like that's a solid, hopeful forecast.
Well, it's, as anybody who lives in the Midwest very long, it's almost impossible or very difficult to make long-range forecasts, especially during the summertime. So we're just basing this a little bit on some past years that had that similar wetness, during the winter and spring, much like we did this year.
Dan Hicks at Freeze Notice Weather, appreciate your time. We'll talk to you a little later on here mid-morning as we look ahead to the forecast for Illinois. Thanks to all of you for spending some time with us today. Certainly hope that you took lots of good pieces of information away, especially from the OSF. And I'm hoping that, Nick, how's your memory working today?
Not too bad.
The website for the information on OSF?
It is osfhealthcare.org / I believe SilverCloud.
SilverCloud is that app. So if you need any more information, log on to that OSF site. Thank you so much. And this is RFD Today. I'm Rita Frazier. More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.